Commissioner Dodd,
Present.
Commissioner Davidson,
Here.
Commissioner Wilson,
Here.
Commissioner Boyd,
Here.
Commissioner Irvin,
Present.
Commissioner Anthony Johnson,
Present.
Chairman McAdoo.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, next on the agenda is approval of minutes. Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, I've looked over the minutes and for January 26th, and they're all in order, so I move to approve.
Motion second to approve. Any questions? Not all those in favor? I'd like to call Mr. Adams up. One-stop update.
Good evening. I'll start tonight's report with Rutherford County One Stop, the county clerk's portion. So exterior there, the siding is ongoing. It remains at roughly 90%, mostly exterior trim out remaining. Fascia is at 100%. The soffit is ongoing. There are still some areas under the entrances and the drive-through there that they're still working on. Interior walls, doors are now 100% complete. The glass is ongoing at 75%. Low voltage trim out remains ongoing. Ceiling, lights, sprinkler, trim out remains 90%. The site concrete is now at 100%. That's what we were waiting on. There's some pictures of the rear. There's the rear. So you can see now that they have the pads and the sidewalk in. They've started setting the condensers. There should be another picture. There you go. So that kind of gives you an idea. That was the holdup on starting to install some of the equipment. The exterior light poles are ongoing. MTE, the pole boxes, they passed inspection this week. Additional site work and grading has begun, but it's ongoing. As for the DMV, the framing is now at 100%. The drywall is at 100%. Electrical plumbing, sprinkler line rough-in is now at 100%. Drywall finishing, low voltage, ongoing. And we did, last Thursday, we met with a representative from the state, the DMV, and on site, we discussed keying plans, signage, low voltage, and custodial requirements. If you don't have any questions, that will complete my report.
Any questions on One Stop?
Mr. Chairman, we're still on budget and all squared away? And
There are no additional charges. All of that was included in what we talked about last month. I believe you're familiar with the cost overruns associated with that project. But to answer your question, no. That's covers all of it at this time.
And Adam, we're still looking around May for completion.
May 1st is the deadline that we have from Rock City.
Any other questions? All right. Next, public health and safety buildings update.
Okay, so we always start with Rockville. The exterior glass remains at 90%. The contractor anticipates completing the glass next week. Fascia is ongoing. Contractor anticipates completing fascia early next week. The soffit is ongoing. The contractor is experiencing delays getting those materials due to supply chain shortages. The siding and trim remains at 90% complete. The majority of what's left is some trim out. It's around the glass and some of the storefronts and windows. Like I said, that's about 90%. Interior walls, they're just touching up on the interior. Okay, that's the transformer that we finally got set last week. Let's see. Okay, that'll touch on the fascia. You can see that they've started around the back and they're working their way around. That picture was taken Wednesday morning. So early next week, they look to have all the eaves and the fascia boards complete. Let's go forward. Again. Okay, now we get to the interior. You're looking at the EMS side. Basically a finished product. Okay, go back forward. Okay, so you know that there's an office in there for the Sheriff's Department, EMS, and fire. That is what the Sheriff's Department's office looks like. And to the right, that is a picture of one of the 3 identical pantries that are located in the kitchen area for each shift. Go ahead. There's your kitchen and your eating area. There is on the left. That's the inside of the day room. That's also the tornado shelter. And to the right, that's a picture looking as you walk into the dorm, the living quarters. That's a picture of the living quarters now. All the furniture has been, we touched on that last week, all the furniture has been delivered to site and assembled. There were a few desks remaining, and that's going to be tied up tomorrow. There's a picture of the restrooms, bathroom, LED lit, backlit mirrors, sinks, closets, urinals. That's what they'll all look like, but that's the finished product. Now, before we get into that, I'll finish up. They're 90% on their electrical fixtures, as you just saw from the kitchen and the pantry areas. The millwork cabinetry is now at 100%. Low voltage is ongoing. They should wrap that up next week. I've already touched on the FF&E, the fixture and the furnitures. That's 90% complete. Beds, tables, chairs, nightstands. They've all been, as you saw, assembled and outfitted according to the drawings. He has started a compact grade, so we were concerned last month about the weather and the delays in getting the rock down. To start asphalt, so they have started that this week. They've had some weather that has cooperated with them, so they've started prepping the ground for the site asphalt. Lastly, we were hoping to be in this building within the next couple weeks. We were given a date for the generator. So that we could complete all of our inspections. I received this email Thursday, and I just thought I would share it with you. As you can see, they're having supply chain issues with some of the components to complete manufacture of the generator. That came, I think, from the supplier that we are going through with S&W. So just to share that, it's not a long delay, but it is a delay. So now we're looking at March 27th, and I just wanted to update you on that. So instead of moving in early March, we quite possibly could be looking at occupancy at the end of March. The building itself will be at 100%. We're already going through and working on punch list. And tying up all those loose ends, but that's really the final hurdle is the generator and getting it in and getting it hooked up. So, but if you don't have any questions, that's completes my report on Rockdale.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Dodd?
thank you. Is the generator an absolute necessity for C of O or moving in?
Yes, Yes, it's been determined that because of the nature of the facility, that they wanted to have the generator in so that all the systems that are associated with that building, we know that they're backed up. It's the nature of it. The 911. I think y'all knew early on that's the first building, so it's going to house like. I'm not going to get into the IT portion of it, but it's going to house like the equipment that the other stations will, I guess, utilize. The equipment that's at Rockville. I think wasn't there a deduction in the IT line for the other buildings because Rockville was going to hold the initial equipment. Yeah. So, but that's what it is. It's just the nature of the building. So they want to ensure that all the backup systems will function.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your report. Next on the agenda,
It's Kittrell.
Kittrell.
So I really don't have any. So far, everything is going. There was a few delays. They ran into some rock. I think we touched on that last week. It was 14 to 17 days. I think they're making up. I think now with the weather breaking, they've made up some of that ground. So we touched on last month that all the structural walls, the steel trusses were complete. The roof is currently at 90% complete. Contractor anticipates wrapping up the roof next week. Fascia and soffit is ongoing. They do have all the materials to complete that on site. Stone masonry walls are at 75%. Lap siding materials are already on site. Mechanical and plumbing rough-in is at 100%. Electrical rough-in is complete, and it's passed inspection. Zipboard insulation is at 90%. And, let's see. Okay, so this is that stage where it seems like it's slow, but they're really doing a lot. It just it doesn't look like it, but okay, that's what I was wanting you to see. So the decking, and you can see that they're starting to apply the foam insulation and the ceiling. So the site utilities are ongoing. They're roughly 75%. That completes the report on Kittrell at this time.
The delivery date, approximately, what month or what quarter?
We're on Kittrell right now. We're in April.
Chairman McAdoo, I can update you on the Las Casas Public Health and Safety Building if you'd like.
While Adams is up here, go ahead and update us.
All right. We conducted the pre-construction meeting with the contractor to start moving dirt at the Las Casas site. And there is part of an old school building, the old school. This building will have to be demolished first. We met at our office with the contractors, the erosion control professional, and also the volunteer fire department chief, Rogers. And they're going to fence this area off and keep this lane open for the volunteer firefighters to be able to go in and out. So that'll still be an active site while they're working on the Las Casas, the new public health and safety building in this location here. If you recall, the county purchased 3 acres of land back here. They're going to add a driveway back to the ball field to kind of separate the ball field public traffic from the fire and EMS traffic coming in and out of the new driveways. So that's just a quick update, but they're starting to move dirt in Las Casas.
Questions? Okay. Not, we'll move on. Next on the agenda, project manager discussion. Eric?
Commissioners. So Sonia Stevenson and I met a couple of weeks ago and kind of looked at what other communities were doing for similar type jobs. We found similar type jobs in other communities and kind of tried to put what they had for their definition of the job description together from several different sources. After we did that, we had a meeting last week with Adam Dodd, Mike Hughes, and Stan Vaught, and kind of let the experts who know what this construction job is look at what we had put together. They had several changes that they thought would be warranted for what they kind of thought this job would be. Sonia and I are in the process of going through those and kind of compiling the different ideas from the different individuals. I would expect that we will have this ready to go probably a couple of weeks as a job description, which then could be brought to the committee for you guys to then scrutinize and decide if that's what you think this job should be. So that's where we're at this point in time. We're almost there, but not quite.
Any questions? Commissioner Wilson?
Thank you, Chairman. In your discussions with how others are doing it, have we checked with our own Rutherford County schools? Obviously, Tralee has several people to look after their various projects. My question would be, we don't have as many ongoing projects currently planned beyond, obviously, we have our buildings we're talking about with Adam right now. Is there really a need, I'm just saying, to have a full-time position long-term, or do we have a short-term solution that might be better? And have we checked to see if we just need someone to do certain buildings? I just wonder if we should utilize maybe something that's already kind of in the county system in some form to see if we could use someone, for lack of a better term, part-time, or something that once we're kind of finished with our major projects, several, then that person could go on and do something else with the school system and we would not continue paying. So I'm just bringing that up to say, have we considered not creating a new position if we have a temporary problem?
So I can answer part of that question for sure. Have we specifically looked at job descriptions from what the schools use? I don't know if that was included in the ones that Sonia and I found originally. I think she was going to reach out to them. I don't know if she did or if she didn't. To the other part of your question, absolutely. That is something that we are considering and that we are kicking around, trying to come up with, should this be a part-time position only? Should this be a contract position, or should this be a full-time position? So, we've got 5 or 6 people looking at this, and there's 5 or 6 different ideas there, all of which have merit. And so that is something that we are trying to narrow down as to what we think would be the best at this point in time. Obviously, if y'all disagree with that, you can change it. But yes, we are looking at, should it be a contract position, should it be a part-time position, or ultimately a full-time position.
Would you guys consider having a conversation with RCS just to see what they're doing, just so the public knows we're looking at not only of things we're currently doing kind of inside the county system, but we're looking at every aspect of how we could take care of what we're trying to accomplish, but doing it with the most fiscal responsibility. So, and I know obviously Trey's got at least 2 or 3 people they're constantly doing projects. I'm just saying, what if they could bring someone on that would be able to do what we're looking at, and then in the future, because the school system will continue growing, they will have need for more projects, more maintenance oversight. That could just be something that eventually works with them as well. So, thank you for answering that you are considering those things.
And you know, that's something that we've thought about too, as far as while we're looking at mainly these public health and safety buildings, but that's not it. And once these public health and safety buildings are built, there's probably going to be other projects that are going to be coming along in the future. And so we don't know what that looks like. I think at this point in time, I can say that we are leaning towards a part-time position to start with. I think that's the consensus answer. If what we bring you next month doesn't say that, please don't be mad at me, but I think that is the consensus of where we're at as of right now. So that is part of the, you know, as far as the fiscal responsibility, we obviously don't want to hire someone to do work if there's no work to be done. And so, yes, we are definitely considering that and trying to weigh our options to see what would be the best way of handling that type of situation. Now, I will make sure that we have reached out to RCS before next month, and I will bring you back and let you know what they've said and or you know what we found. No problem.
Any other questions? Commissioner Phillips?
Thank you, Chairman McAdoo. Eric, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Commissioner Wilson was saying. You mentioned a committee of 4 or 5 people. HR was involved in the process. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, it actually started with Human Resources and myself. And then after that, we had the meeting with Adam Dodd, Mike Hughes, Stan Vaught, Sonia Stevenson, and myself.
That sounds perfect. The reporting responsibility would be included in that job description, right, as to who this person reports to?
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay. Next on the agenda, sale of single road home and barns and sheds.
Mr. Chairman, our January 26th meeting, we had discussion about this property, and we had a motion, a proper motion made, but then we had the rules suspended. Don't get me wrong, we approved the minutes because they were correct. The process was not correct. It was just, you know, it's nobody's fault. Sometimes it happens. But we need to clean that up. And if you read through the minutes, I hope you caught that. We suspended the rules after the proper motion, but we had an amendment. Then we were going to vote. We realized we weren't in session or back in session, so we went back in session and we had to vote. We didn't have a proper motion. So we're just trying to clean that up. I'd like to make a motion that we would rescind the motions pertaining to the selling of the Singer Florence Road house and buildings. Not really sure if we should just stop at that and rescind those motions. In other words, we're just going to take back everything we did on that, maybe vote on that, and then have a motion on what we are going to proceed to do.
I believe that's okay. We got the county attorney back here if I have any questions on that.
I'm thinking that'd be the cleanest way to do it, is just stop at that.
That would be a clean and simple way to do it, just rescind everything and start over new. Yep. Go ahead. You're part of this committee, come on.
And the rules? All right, still in session. We don't want to get caught like last time, so. For that procedural irregularity, if you want to rescind what was done last time, you're within your right to do that because it was sent back down here. I believe, on SharePoint, I don't know if it's up there, Mike, or somebody, the resolution that was presented before the commission, is that on there, Mr. Hughes? I believe it was uploaded to SharePoint, so it may be on your pads. That was a resolution that I put together based on the discussion that was had at the last meeting. And so once you vote to rescind, because I imagine that's going to pass, but I don't know, assuming that's the case, maybe a motion going forward once any further discussion is had is if you want to move this back to the commission, you could just advance this resolution back to the commission. And what this resolution does is it allows for the auction to be held at the property and to sell by auction not just the house, but the barns and the sheds that are surrounding the house, and to have Mr. Vaught conduct the auction. I've attached an agreement by Mr. Vaught to this resolution that he sent me, and he'll do that at a 0% commission for free. And then once the auction takes place and the bids are submitted, there will be a auction purchase agreement that is signed that I will handle, and at that point it'll be brought back to the commission again for final approval. So the bids will come in and it'll come back here to make sure we're good with those bids, the high bids, and it'll finally be approved. So it'll be through the commission twice. So that'd be my recommendation here. I think, Mike, that the house sits on one parcel, and then the sheds and the barns actually sit maybe on a separate parcel right behind it, but the county owns both. So the idea is to allow Stan to auction off those items. I think Mike told me that the sheds and the barns, they really aren't usable fixtures that can be probably removed. They may have to be dismantled and the remnants sold, and that would be what would be part of the auction.
And then, you understand, Commissioner Johnson?
So it's my understanding from the last meeting, our intentions were to sell the house and then sell the other buildings separately during that same auction, but
Yeah, I think I've tried to
actually be, I think, 4 auctions.
Yeah, I've tried to leave that in the discretion of Mr. Vaught on how he wants to handle that, because his services are for free. So whether he's doing one auction or 3 or 4 separate ones, whatever happens, it'll all be brought back here once the high bids are in. And the actual conveyance and the closings can't occur until we've got commission approval of the high bids.
And it's my understanding that the cost that we would incur is for advertising. He wouldn't really charge us to do it, but
correct.
They charge for the advertising because that's going to cost them.
And what Mr. Vaught has recommended is setting aside, and this is in the resolution, is setting aside $2,000 for the advertising costs plus $1,000 for the closing costs associated with the closings of the property, because I'll have to review some of the bill of sale, the purchase agreements and everything, and so that should cover, it's a total of $3,000.
And let me make this point, that $3,000 is coming out of the mayor's budget.
That's in the resolution.
I don't believe it's in the resolution because a budget amendment's not required. Your finance director's already looked into it, and I believe there's money already allocated to that, and the mayor's been consulted, and I believe he's good with that, so it's no need to be in the resolution.
So we don't have to include that in the motion.
Do not.
Okay.
I think it's understood.
It was mentioned that we would earmark money from this property to go back into cleaning up the property. Is that in the resolution?
That's not in the current resolution.
That need to be separate, or?
That's at the will of this body. So the money's going to go into the general fund, I believe. Now, whether it can be earmarked, Mr. Smith, for purposes, I don't mean to call you up here. I know you come to these meetings, you're going to get called. That's how it works. So I don't know if there's certain audit things or accounting things for that.
So we can definitely do that. Part of the plan was there's already budget for legal services in the mayor's budget, which the closing costs would fall under. There is some other charges category in the mayor's budget which we could spend for the advertising costs. I do believe the plan was, once this property was sold, was to use the proceeds from this to cover that $3,000 so that would not increase any appropriations to the county. Now, if you would like to put anything above that 3,000, we could, at that time, depending on how much the property sells for, bring that back to this commission and then, or back to this committee and then back to budget and do a budget amendment and appropriate those funds however you would like, since those are not, those would not be appropriated in the original budget. So we could appropriate those back to the cleaning up that project if this committee would like. We can,
You could say that now. You could say that the proceeds are going to be,
I'll still have to bring in an actual amendment back to this body because we don't know the dollar amount. So we'll still have to bring an actual amendment back to recognize that revenue and then recognize the appropriation. So it's, if you want to do it now, we're still going to have to come back to this committee and to budget after the property sells.
I will say too, though, that we don't know how much money is going to be necessary to clean up the property. You don't know what it's going to sell for. So it's hard to maybe put that sort of in the resolution that it's going to be earmarked because we don't know to the extent to which any cleanup would have to be done. So you might wait on that.
Let me add, whatever this property sells for, we can't use that money for anything until we come back to this body to appropriate it, because that's unbudgeted revenue. So even if this property were to sell for $1 million or for $10,000, I can't spend any of it until we come back through the budget, through the full commission. So you can put that in the resolution now if you'd like as an amendment, or we can still, either way, we're coming back with a number.
Okay. Just got one statement to make. You were talking about the funds being used for cleanup. We had a project previously like this, and what we did on the cleanup, we used our in-house maintenance group to take care of it. And so I would hate to go ahead and try to set up funds for a cleanup when we can do it in-house. And that's the reason, that's what we did on the last one. It worked out perfect. Adam is back there and he remembered. We did that under Mr. Mackin, and it worked out perfect. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
We didn't have a second, did we?
No, we didn't have a second. Have you made your motion? You good with your motion?
Yes. The motion was to rescind all actions from the January 26th meeting on the Singer Road property. We'll rescind that.
Okay. Motion to rescind. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Wilson. Any other discussion?
Just one quick clarification. If we rescind this motion, the motion has gone before the county commission, correct?
No. I backed it off, you remember?
And thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Now, we're ready for a new motion. Everybody look.
Okay, I'll do it, or try to. I'd make a motion that the Singer Road, Florence Road property in the house, 2 sheds and a barn would be put up for auction. Well, I'll take that back. We have a resolution.
Right.
So I'll make a motion to send that resolution
to the full
with our
committee.
approval to the county commission for their approval, for our
Oh,
approval.
good. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Got a second from Commissioner Boyd in discussion on the resolution?
I would just point out that there is a copy in the last commission meeting of the resolution, just for ease of reference.
Somebody want to read it? Any other discussion? Do everyone understand? Everyone understand? Will you call the roll on that motion?
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Chairman McAdoo.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Can I have a quick follow-up question? This is going to be an auction.
Yes.
What if what if it doesn't bring the amount of money that the county wants for it? It's not an absolute auction, right?
Not an absolute.
So we wouldn't have to sell it. One of our reasons for selling this piece of property, if I remember right, is to put it back on the tax rolls. So what if not?
No.
Oh, this is the building.
I'm sorry?
This is just the structures on our property. We want, if the buyer doesn't clean it up, we may end up cleaning it up ourselves. We're trying to avoid our demolition cost.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
These are dwellings on top of property that we own at the Singer Road site next to the railroad tracks. We're just selling very specifically the house and structures, but not the land upon which those structures sit.
So the county's going to maintain?
County's going to maintain the property.
Very good. So we're not talking about selling county property. We're just talking about cleaning up the property,
Yes.
correct?
Up the property and trying to make a little profit.
I'm sorry. It made my whole point mute. I apologize for bringing it up. Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, delinquent real property tax discussion. Eric and the county attorney.
Guess we're going to tag team this one. So what I know about this is that I was given a list of all the property that the county currently owns. I don't recall how many parcels that is, but it's quite extensive. And looked through those parcels. Some of those parcels are mitigation property, which the county had to buy because of flooding and those kinds of things. Some of those properties are schools or county buildings. Some of those properties, I wasn't really sure what they were for at this point in time. And so I guess I'm saying all of that to say I've been going through this list to find what would be delinquent tax property. I don't know that we have any. There may be one parcel that I have identified that is potentially in this category, but I don't know yet. There may be more. I'm not saying that there's only one, but there's only one parcel that in my mind and looking at it on Google Earth appears that it may be in this category. I've not been able to find the supporting documentation yet for that. So I guess, and then Nick and I were discussing this, that once we've kind of pared this list down from several hundred to just a handful, I'm going to forward that to Nick probably tomorrow or Monday, and he can then look at it to see if he has the documentation to support if it is or if it is not a delinquent property, tax property that should or could be sold.
Just add something real quick. I want to try to clear up any confusion from the last meeting so that everybody understands when we say delinquent tax property, what are we talking about? What we're talking about is when there's a owner of property that becomes delinquent in their property tax, and the delinquent tax attorney goes to Chancery Court and files a delinquency tax proceeding against the property owner. They have the ability to keep their land if they pay their property taxes, but if they don't, then the clerk and master orders a sale to take place of the property. And there's a number of statutes that govern how that's supposed to take place. Assuming that the property owner cannot pay for it at the tax sale, it's open to other bidders. Oftentimes, these pieces of land that are delinquent tax properties, they don't have much value. They're very small strips of land. They have they have sinkholes, or they're just not buildable, and so there's not any bidders on the property. And when that happens, the law requires that property to be let in by the county, meaning we take possession, custody, and control of that property. There's a set of statutes that govern our ability to either keep the property or if we want to dispose of the property via sale. We've done that over the last 5 or 6 years. Mr. Sandlin, when he was chief of staff, helped coordinate the sale and getting those back on the tax roll. We auctioned off a number of those properties, and now the question is, are there any more in the county's asset inventory that we need to do that to? That's what Mr. Hennessy is looking into now. I'm in agreement with him. I'm not so sure that there are any at this point, and if there are, then we'll be back here to help this committee go through the procedure of selling or otherwise disposing or keeping that property. If there are delinquent tax properties that we can dispose of, there's a new committee that would need to be created. It's called the Delinquent Tax Property Committee. Generally, how we do that is, or at least in the past, is this committee would pick 4 of its members, and it would be sent up to the commission for formal appointment to that committee. It's a very informal committee. It's only for this sole purpose to work with the county mayor, who's also by law on that committee on how you're going to dispose of that property. Generally, in the past, how it's done is that committee would meet after the property management committee. It's really just for this sole purpose. And if the county didn't own any of these properties right now, there's no reason to reestablish this committee and go for that process. If there are, me and Eric will be back on this issue.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
Dodd?
In jest, if there is a committee, I do want to make sure Trey Gooch is on it.
Any commissioner can be appointed to it. It's not just limited to those that are on this committee. It's any county commissioner can be appointed to it. So
As long as Trey Gooch is one of them.
there you go.
Nominate all of your friends.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, could you come back and report either way?
Yeah, if there are delinquent tax properties, I can be back with Eric, but if there aren't any in our inventory, Eric can just handle that, to let y'all know.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
Rachel
Dodd?
did send out an Excel spreadsheet a couple of months ago. So if any of y'all want to dig back, if you hadn't opened it yet, it's pretty fascinating, and it's because it's in Excel, you can filter and click around. It's fascinating what we own. It's some school board, some schools, so you just might find it interesting. In months to come, we may talk about various pieces. Thanks for sending it out, Rachel.
Commissioner Dodd, just so you know, that's the list of properties that I had to go through one by one and look them up on Google Earth and on the property assessor's website. The first list I got, there had properties that were saying they were county properties that had already been sold from the previous listing that was made. So I had to get a new updated list made before we could even get started. So that's what I've been working through. So that's why it's taken a little bit longer than I anticipated.
Good report. Any questions? Questions? All right, thank you, but you may want to stay up here, Eric. Next on the agenda, naming of county-owned buildings.
So I think that this item has kind of twofold idea of
It is twofold.
what we're going to be talking about, and one half of it I don't really have much to say. But the other thing is I have kind of looked, not thoroughly, but just kind of overlooked, I guess is probably a better way of saying it, at what some other communities are doing as far as the rules and regulations that they have for naming of buildings and the things that, basically the procedures that they have. And if this committee would like, I would be more than happy to go through and kind of look at those a little bit more extensively and put together some suggestions based on what other communities are doing in regards to their policies for naming of public buildings.
Any questions to Director Eric? Yes. Now we say twofold.
Sir.
Oh,
I would absolutely like to see those brought back here, if you could,
Okay.
to see what others are doing, because we really need to get up to speed with all the other communities that are doing it and recognize some of our great citizens.
I can tell you from what I found originally, it's mainly cities that are doing this and school and universities. The universities are doing it that, if you got $200,000, you can name a building after yourself kind of way. But I don't think that's really what we're looking for. But some of the cities do have some decent ideas and some parameters, basically, of what would be required before a building could be named after an individual. So I can put that together for sure.
it was in the form of a request motion. Just requesting this, or you want to put it?
So I want to make a motion that we receive parameters for future naming of buildings. Is that what we're looking for? I just want to see them.
Okay, just a request at this time.
Okay, he said I don't need a motion.
Yeah, just a request at this time. Okay, this motion is,
Request and a second. Okay.
this motion, like I said, is twofold. We got another project going on, and this basically is coming from, because you know that One Stop is building is almost complete. And the commission voted to name One Stop Bart Smith, after Bart Smith or whatever. Now, the questions that are coming up is what size sign and all this good stuff. So we want to look at the entire picture and maybe come up with a consistent signage naming of buildings for the county. And we have our planning committee working on that. And Mike has been working on that, and he got some examples. But I guess what we're looking for is a naming parameter that we can use on all buildings. In other words, we want something that's consistent. If I'm naming this building with gold letters or whatever, or what size letters, that if I go to the next building, I could go have the same plan and use it. And basically speaking, it'd be something like the schools. In other words, when they build a school, they already have the schools and everything and what size letter and all they're going to use. And that's what we're looking for here. Also, we're looking for an example being drawn up and passed around and looked at by this committee and others for the input, so we can come up with a good sign for the building. In other words, we just don't want to run out there and just throw anything up. We want to put up a good sign that we can use not only on this building, but the same format on other buildings. I'm going to turn it over to Mike because he do have a couple examples.
Yes, sir. Well, it's an application that was made for the One Stop building, and let's see if I can find that. So this is kind of the application that was made. So there's going to be a ground sign at the corner of Blaze Drive and Fortress that's going to say, this one says Rutherford County One Stop. And then there will also be a sign for the TDOT, if I can find that. This is all through the city of Murfreesboro. Let's see. Well, it's not in here. But there's going to be a ground sign for One Stop, a ground sign for the TDOT portion of the building for the license renewal place, and then there'll be a sign on the building for the building itself. So these examples were what was put up by the architect, so there might need to be some fine tuning that's done with that. So we don't really have a set standard or anything like that we've come up with. This is just what the architect put together for the One Stop.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Dodd?
if you go back to the site plan, Mike, that showed the marquee or the monument, yeah, right there. And so that's the monument for One Stop on the bottom right hand of your site plan.
Yes, sir.
And where would the DMV be?
The DOT sign will be here. I believe the DOT portion of the building is on this end, and then there will be a sign on the building. This is the drive-through for the clerk's office, and this portion will be the clerk's office on this end. So,
Do you have a Google Earth street view of,
yes, sir.
for instance, the Register of Deeds building, whatever? Like, do we have other monuments, or do we have names across the canopy in other county buildings?
I don't recall that we do.
No, I don't recall any on the county buildings.
Like the one stop in Smyrna, does it have a big name across above the doors? I don't know. I need, yeah.
I don't believe it does either. I could be wrong. Uh-oh, we're thinking.
Ms. Crowell, do you have, does your Smyrna building have a name above the canopy, above the door? And don't let me get in the weeds, but does the community know what one-stop shop means? I thought that was an internal name. I don't want to name it One Stop. I wouldn't know what it was.
Yes, you can come up, you're part of the committee.
So from everything that I have looked at, when the Smyrna satellite office was being considered, the land was purchased, the building was being designed, it was actually called One Stop. I brought this to the attention when One Stop was being considered for what I call the Blackman office, because it does get a little confusing. They called the Smyrna the One Stop. If you go back and look at the paperwork, is when they were talking about it on this commission, it was called One Stop. I call it the Smyrna office. And the reason they called it a One Stop is because it had the emission station right there to the side. So their mindset was it's a one stop. You could get your emissions testing and then get your car tags. So when the Blackman office was being considered and talked about, the name One Stop came up, and the ideal behind that one was different than the Smyrna, which is One Stop, was talked about because and considered One Stop because it had the driver's license at one end and it has the county clerk's office at the other end. So in time, and years down the road, when people start looking at minutes, they're going to actually see two county clerk buildings that are One Stop for different reasons. So that's it. If you want to check the paperwork, you can verify that what I'm saying is actually there.
So we may choose to, the community may need to see it called the Blackman County Clerk's Office or something. And again, this is not our topic. I think we're talking about other things, but if we're going to decide how to name these in near future, I don't even know what we're looking at.
But that's what Erica's be working on.
Okay. And thank you for that.
And I'd like to express something else while I have the opportunity to speak with you. And if you don't mind, is when you look at other county buildings across the state, I think even at the sheriff's office here, outside it has the elected official's name on it. And of course, in Rutherford County, we don't do that except at the sheriff's office. And although I know Bart Smith and I know Clarissa, I think the world of both of them, I do have concerns because of the practice on other county buildings that the elected official's name is actually on the building. I have concerns of someone making out their check and bringing it in and me coming with a problem. I think the world of the family. I thought the world of Bart. He actually was on my payroll for a time. And I just hope that will be considered when all these decisions are being made. I don't want something to be problematic down the road.
Any other discussion? Adam?
Commissioner Dodd, there were discussions early on with the signage of this building, and it was finally determined with the Public Building Authority to actually name the building separately from the monument. One thing that we didn't touch on is that the reason why we're naming that the monument sign that you just looked at that's at the corner of Fortress and Blaze, the Rutherford County One Stop, is because there's future expansion. So upon discussions with the architect and with PBA, there are other site locations on that property. So we didn't want to name that building the One Stop. We wanted the complex to have a name, and then each individual building and future building to have a separate name. If that clears that, anything.
Before I call on anybody else, I got this, I had Lisa to pull the motion that was passed by the full commission on naming this one-stop building. And I'll read it out to you. Commissioner Paul Johnson moved, second by Commissioner David Gannon, to approve naming the one-stop building in honor of Bart Smith. Motion adopted by voice vote with one dissenting vote. Now, it's our job to fulfill this, but it didn't go into any details. Didn't go to any details or not. Do you want me to put up a neon sign or what? So therefore, that's the reason we assisted the help of the Planning Commission, along with the PBA, along with the architectural people, to come up with a sufficient sign to put on this building. You know, we don't want to put something up there that look tacky, but we want to put something up there that will blend in with the architectural design of this building. But that's what we're doing now. We're not changing the name or whatnot, because the commission said that they want it done. And it was voted and it passed. So we're trying to do it, but do it in a professional way that will blend in with the architect and maybe set of precedents that we can use in the future. That's all we're doing. We're not renaming no building or doing nothing else or whatever. I think we got Commissioner Wilson first, and then Trey Gooch would like to approach us.
Thank you, Chairman. Has the Planning Commission chimed in at all on some recommendations? I know planning deals with sign heights, sign widths, colors, materials. Have they, because we're talking about how to properly sign this, has the Planning Commission chimed in? I mean, would it be okay if they're allowed to at least have a discussion? Those guys full-time are just talking about elevations and sizes of things, and I feel like if they had a recommendation for us, it'd help us make better choices. And they may know how signage better fits all over the county, because they're always constantly having to approve those. Would that be something the Planning Commission could look at, or?
The county attorney would like to answer your question.
That's a great suggestion. This project's been going on for many years now, and there are agreements in place both with the PBA and with the architect on how the plans and whatnot are to be developed. And in particular, this particular project is within the city limits. It's on city land. So our county planning commission is not reviewing these internally. They're not reviewing these because they don't know what the city's requirements are. It's going through planning commission on it. And so we have to meet the city's requirements on what and we have to adhere to those requirements on signage.
So let me rephrase then. I'm not a sign designer, so I'm just saying if we could have some suggestions by people that look at signs, by whoever that is, and maybe say, hey, here is 3 or 4 different designs and concepts, it would help me make a decision, because we have a name, But we're talking about what it's going to look like and all that. I would like to have a recommendation from people that do this a lot. So whoever that would be, I didn't know if our planning
I think
commission just could make a suggestion.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so you do have the PBA that's looking at this, and they're, in conjunction with the county mayor, are giving their recommendations on it. Now, if the property management committee wants to have a say-so or in it, I'm sure that they would listen to that. I will say that there is signage permits and applications have been pulled. Mike, if you pull that up, they've got a rendition of what it's going to look like. So that might give you at least an initial snapshot if you look at the plans that Mike will pull up of what they're considering, what's been proposed.
I would love to see some good suggestions from people that do sign concepts. That would be great.
You could, I was going to say you could ask the architect to come here at a meeting, but that would be next month. I don't know where they are in the process with getting this thing done, but is there a rendering of what that would look like on the?
This is what a little snapshot of that. I think there is a larger plan.
You know what color? Is it going to be silver lettering?
It said bronze, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the proposal
Dark
right
bronze, aluminum letters on.
And I would like to bring up another point that we can come up with the perfect sign or whatever, but it's still, like he said, within the city municipality. So whatever the planning commission or whoever, we can get some professional or whoever we get to draw this sign up. It's got to go before the Murfreesboro Planning Commission because they have sign and codes ordinances. So they would have to look at it.
I don't know exactly where this is in the stage, but if there are changes that are going to be made, there might need to be changes to the architectural drawings and renderings. That can cost some money. There might have to be change orders done if there's anything that's already in production. So just keep that in mind. Now, moving forward for projects in the future, I think the idea of this committee is to maybe have a little bit more idea of how we're going to deal with signage in the future. It might be too far gone on this particular one in terms of the design, but just a thought. I see my facilities director there just nodding, saying, yeah, we're pretty far along.
Well, if it is, then we really don't have much decision to make, right?
No, not tonight. Just bring you up to date on the name
Okay.
of the building and who's looking into it.
I didn't know if we were
Because
having a discussion based on trying to come up with suggestions on
No, no,
this.
no,
But maybe
no,
for the future,
no,
for our
right,
other 6
right.
buildings, that'll be more matching. We
That's
come up
right.
with
That's
something.
the reason it's being brought up tonight. You're exactly right. And that's the reason we showed what we had on this project, and we showed who hands it's in and what they're doing. And maybe just in summary, say we got a progress report on what the planning commission was doing with the sign and naming of the building. Okay, Commissioner Gooch?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Several things I've heard and seen tonight that I don't think that was agreed upon. My understanding, and Lisa explained it well, that the reason the building's called One Stop is because you can get your driver's license and then your car registration and so forth at the same building. Reason we named it One Stop. Now I'm hearing early in the conversation that we're going to name half of the building something and then the other half of the building something. I don't ever remember that being discussed. So in other words, the whole building is named the Bart Smith One Stop. And then I'm seeing a sign over here that says Smith Williams on the side of a building. I think we named a bridge after Smith Williams, but I don't know where Smith Williams come up.
No.
Can we?
I can answer that question on Smith Williams. He had the wrong information and he just made it up with that. But the sign that we approved is going to be named Bart Smith.
Okay, now like I say, I saw it.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify
Yeah,
that that was a
I got the
mistake.
paperwork right here. It's going to be named Bart Smith. So what he did is don't think we're going to run out there and name it Smith Williams or whatever he got up there.
Just
That's just an example.
clarification.
Okay?
And are you on the 911 building that's, I think it was named after John Hood, is that correct? It's across the street from it?
I don't remember. Did we do
Not
it?
that building, I think it's another building.
I think the 911 did that their committee do it. We got a committee for 911.
Well, I'm just wondering what their sign looks like.
Oh,
Obviously, we want to keep the sign in compliance with codes.
yeah.
Obviously. That may be it.
think it has a sign on it.
Yeah, it can be on the building, a sign as you go into the property, but just whatever is codes, obviously, that's what we need to do. But just assure that the name is what it is and it's not going to change.
One of these minutes, it's gonna be named the Bart Smith Building.
The Bart Smith One Stop
Yeah.
Building.
Commission passed it. So any other questions? Commissioner Johnson?
So on our agenda, we're on naming of county-owned buildings,
Right.
but we're talking about sign design. To me, that's two different things. This building is already named. So if we're talking about sign design, we're talking about sign design basically, and this is too far
Right.
gone for future buildings.
That's the reason I said this was twofold discussion.
But most of the discussion has been about sign design. The agenda says naming of county-owned buildings. I thought we were going to come up with a pattern or regulations, suggestions of how we would name county buildings in the future. Say they all have to be named after somebody that did something special, or can it be named after somebody that's still alive, or do they have to be deceased? I thought that's what we would be discussing. But as far as sign design, I think that's really on individual buildings, because you're talking about the type of building.
Right.
If we set a certain sign design and say we're going to use this on every building, it won't fit. There again, like Commissioner Goose said, codes requirements is going to change all that. You know, if it's in Smyrna,
Murfreesboro, Eagleville,
or Murfreesboro, wherever,
Laverne.
you go by their codes. So I don't see that we could really have a sign design put in place for all of our future buildings. But it seems like that's what most of our discussion has been.
Eric, will you come back up here? Eric is the one that we're bringing up on this naming of a county-owned building. And the reason it's on the agenda to let you know that Eric and the ones that are discussing coming up with a plan, an idea, research on naming buildings. So you know the committee that's doing it, and you know where they are at this time, so they can bring it back to this commission. Now, as far as on this other, there was a lot of confusion out there on that. Number one, I heard that we were gonna change the name to the building, that we were gonna change the design of the sign for the building and everything. So I had Lisa to pull up the minutes from the full commission that was passed. And the full commission passed that we would name the building Bart Smith One Stop Building. But that's all. It didn't say anything else. It didn't say if it's gonna be neon, 20-foot high, or whatever. Reason we got into this discussion is because PBA wanted some more information on naming this building, how we were gonna put it up there, what size lettering, what color, and so on and so forth. That's the reason I'm bringing this back tonight, to put down some of the confusion. Now, the original start of this discussion was PBA Stand Vault. And they were at a point in which you can see, Adam told us that percentage-wise of how much the building is complete and whatnot. So they want to know what we want to do with this sign. They want to know what route to go. They wanted some information. That's how planning got involved. The only reason I'm bringing this up tonight, because of all this confusion. That's it. Commissioner Johnson.
I I may have misunderstood, but I thought you said that they were nodding back here that it was too far along on this building, as far as sign design. I may have misunderstood.
Did you get that from Mike?
I know someone said it.
No, that is the architect's plan. We didn't generate that in planning and engineering. That was what the architect put together. So I'm not sure where that Smith-Williams name came from.
So that's the only reason bring it up tonight. Put down.
I wasn't speaking on the name. I'm talking about the sign design. It was my understanding during this discussion that maybe it was too far along to be talking about sign design on this building, that we would address it for future buildings. That's what I understood.
Who did you hear that from?
Well, there's been so much discussion, I know I heard it.
Whoever said that, raised their hand.
Well, you were pointing to the audience and said they're nodding their head, yes, we're probably too far along. I don't know who was sitting back there. I have eyes back here.
So, sorry. So my take on this was that we originally wanted to, take people that had been, prominent in the community and had given a lot back to the community, and at some point on some of our buildings, either existing or future, that we wanted to recognize them with plaques. So I'm thinking we're talking plaques that we're going to put up at some point. So I don't. Yeah, because I'm thinking, well, the naming of buildings is probably not for us. It was, and my take on it was more, when I looked at this naming of county-owned buildings, was this is where we're going to recognize prominent citizens. Not so much the naming and the signage, because I am definitely not a planner.
Eric, you want to discuss that?
If I can make this more confusing. So my intentions of what I'm trying to do is to look at basically just what you just said. Look at what other communities are doing and kind of pull out what I think are best practices of what those other communities are doing. Not to put this in a form of a resolution or anything. It'll probably just be bullet points, to be honest with you, and say these are some ideas. Does it have to be a historic person? Does it have to be a living person? Those kinds of things. And it would be for just deciding on a name for the building. I don't know anything about designing a sign of how that looks representatively on the building. The only thing I would be doing is exactly what you suggested, is just trying to come up with some bullet points or some suggestions for the members of this committee to look at and decide what parameters you would like to put on the restrictions you would like to put on the naming of future buildings. So that's why I say this is twofold, because I didn't really have anything to do with the second half of this about this particular building. It's already done, as far as I understand. So what I was looking at was just trying to help you guys come up with some ideas of some things that you might want to set out. This is kind of our framework of how we want to name our buildings and the criteria that we want to use to name those buildings in the future. So that was my portion of this. So hopefully that helps.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, sir, and you did a great job of explaining it, and I understood what you said. You were right on target, but then we kind of went down a rabbit hole, and I was getting lost. So,
Gotcha.
Chairman, I understood that you were asking for us to, you said PBA wanted direction on size of letters. That's sign design. Is that correct? He said PBA was looking for direction on size of letters. That is sign design. I was saying, can we get some direction from people that do signage if you want? So I didn't go down a rabbit hole. I was trying to answer the question. The question was, PBA wants direction on a size. So I said, that is sign design. Do we have some sign designers in the audience that can give me a suggestion? Because I am not, that's all. So I wasn't trying to take us down a rabbit hole. I thought I was answering the question.
You want to?
Well, and that's why I was confused on us giving direction to PBA, because it sounds like we can't give direction. Okay, so when PBA said size, that's just they sent us down the wrong path. They don't want us to advise on size because you just said we can't. So I don't know how I can help anymore. I don't, because I really don't know what the question is anymore. Because I thought the question. Okay, well, I am not crazy, right? I did hear the direction was size, but now it's gone to name. Okay, then I'm going to stop talking, but I thought I was trying to help answer the question.
Well, that's fine. You got your input. There's nothing wrong with that. Commissioner Gooch?
If you just bear with me one more thing, Ms. Hughes, could you bring up, you had a rendition of the building, I think, earlier. Is it gone?
The gremlins have gone to work again.
Okay, if I remember the rendition, it had the sign already there. It was just the wrong sign on the side of the building. My question was, that rendition, is that the building, what it would look like? Well, it looks like the architecture's already put in a place for the sign. It was just named the Smith Williams instead of the Bart Smith One Stop. So to me, the sign's already there, or the place of the sign.
I don't think they've got the permit yet from the city to actually install the sign. I've been helping Adam with that. They've had some hiccups and hurdles that they've tried to get through.
Yeah.
And I don't believe we've gotten the final permit yet. Do we, Adam? They did? Okay.
County attorney.
Sorry, I don't know where that name came from.
County attorney is.
But we know the real name now. We're going to make it right.
Yeah, let's listen to the county attorney. He's bucking to tell us something.
Maybe somebody's got a shovel. I'll dig my grave a little deeper here. So it sounds like, just from hearing everything, there may be some miscommunication going on between this body, not this body, the county and the PBA regarding the name on this building. Chairman McAdoo's correct. A couple years ago, there was a resolution passed by the county commission that named the building itself on the marquee on top of the building, the Bart Smith One Stop Building. That's what's in the resolution. It's contained within the resolution. Looks like there's a disconnect between what the PBA and the architect have put together here. So I'm happy tomorrow to reach out to the PBA chairman and legal counsel and see what's going on with that. I'll involve your county engineer and your facilities director, who might have to get in touch with the architect to see what's going to happen, because that resolution's already been passed, and I imagine there may be some individuals upset or confused of why the county has already resolved itself to name it one thing, and now you're seeing something different. And that never jives well when we've acted in the past in a certain way, and now what we expected is not occurring. So I'm happy to reach out, like I said, tomorrow and see if we can get some clarity. And if it's going to be changed, it would need to be changed to what the commission's already resolved 2.5 years ago as the Bart Smith One Stop Building on the top of the marquee of the building.
Okay, any questions of the county attorney? Thank you for correcting us on this. Any other discussion? Not any other business? We do have some other business. Got to pick out our tour place for next month. I think Commissioner Johnson had a suggestion they want to pass along to the committee.
Yeah, I just offer the suggestion that we would maybe go and tour our clerk's office in Smyrna, because we know eventually, well, we know how crowded it is. It hasn't been brought up that we expand it, but I see that coming in the future. So while we're down there touring our new recycle center on G Street, it's right next door, so we could tour both of those the building and what we are building. If Ms. Kroll will allow
She's right
that.
back there. Just tell you the date. Okay.
It's our next committee meeting.
Yeah, next Normally, what we're trying to do is do it before the committee meeting at 3:30 p.m. in the evening before the committee meeting. Any other input on that? Do that sound like a good plan? Everybody agree on that per se as a tour for next month? Okay, so look like that's what we'll be doing. Do we have any other business to come before the committee tonight? Motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? All right.